Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Grow Wealthy Grooming. I'm your host, Riverly, and I am the founder of the Savvy Groomer, where I teach you guys to go from being burnt out, broken, to healthy, wealthy, happy, building a grooming business on your terms. So today's episode is sponsored by Personal Finance on a Leash, which is a 12-module masterclass where I teach groomers how to get their personal finances under control. Here is today's topic: the recession and why I am not worried. So first things first, what is a recession? So a recession is a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activity are reduced, generally identified by the fall in GDP into successive quarters. So basically what that means is things are going downhill instead of uphill. So first things first, I'm going to mention the fact that for those of you guys that had to deal with, the 2008 crash, a lot of us are a little traumatized by that. A lot of us that had personal lives that had a lot of big issues. So like for me, I had a 50% foreclosure rate in the city that I grew up in. I was fairly young, and I remember watching my mother lose her house and a lot of my friends' parents losing their homes. It was a really scary time. That said, professionally, I did really well. Okay. During that time, grooming actually was booming. So let's go over specifically why I'm personally not worried. So according to Vanguard, the fact is recessions generally don't tend to last long. So for those of us that graduated not too far from the 2008 crash, a lot of us, remembered how scary it was. But let's be very honest, right? During the 2008 crash, most of the people that got their house foreclosed upon or had instability, a lot of that was because there was excess that really was irrelevant, right? Like I remember I actually applied when I was before 2008 for a loan. And believe it or not, I had no real job. I was a pet sitter at the time. Right. And I know that's not true. I was working at a doggy daycare. I was in college. Like I had no money for a down payment. There's no reason that they should have offered me a mortgage. And yet they did. And I almost bought a house. And I'm so glad I didn't, because there would have been no way for me to have purchased that house. And the price of that house was double what it was worth. So when these recessions happen, when these things happen, oftentimes they're not going to last long. They're going to last a few years. They're going to last a few months. They're not going to last forever, right? We are not going to see a situation where like we did in the Great Depression. And there's lots of reasons for that, but we don't need to go into the details or a history lesson. If you guys do want to have a history lesson, I really do the deep dive. I don't mind that at all, but another time. Another reason is because I have an emergency fund, a sinking fund, and a monthly budget that leaves lots of room for additional savings. So what is an emergency plan or an emergency fund, right? So an emergency plan or fund is cash you've set aside to cover unexpected expenses and only unexpected expenses. So if you guys are an employee, I highly suggest that you do 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, and that is your personal household expenses. And if you're a business owner, I highly suggest that you have 6 months to a year's worth of personal expenses in your account. And then also ideally at least 3 to 6, if not 6 to 12 months worth of business expenses. Okay. Now, the reason I say that is because if something goes wrong, if shit goes sideways, and we have lots of cash to go ahead and spend that money. There's lots of ways of doing that. I personally leave mine in a Smarty Pig account. It's just a silly savings tool that I actually really like. And if you guys want to learn more about it, I'm happy to do a walkthrough on it. But right now, my savings, I get 2.7%, which isn't crazy. It's not like it's not like an investment. Again, this is basically insurance, right? It's insurance money. And so I leave it in that savings account. If I need it, I have access to it in 2 to 3 days. There are very few times when I need something quicker than that. And then if I do need something quicker than that, I do have money set aside in my business account that could cover small things, $3,000 to $5,000. And again, anything more than that, they can wait 2 or 3 days. So you might have heard of a sinking fund. If you haven't, it's a strategic way to save money by setting aside a little bit each month. This can be used for upgrading equipment or things that you're going to break, okay? And don't confuse things that are going to break and then they do break with an emergency. I see way too many of you guys waiting till your dryers or your equipment that you've had for 3, 5, 10 years break and then use your emergency fund, right? It's kind of like Christmas. It's coming every year. Plan to save for it. It's going to make your life so much easier. So the last thing is a written budget, guys. So at the Savvy Groomer, we say a written budget is like an appointment book for your finances. It tells you when and where things should be putting, right, where they should be going. And that way they avoid your chaos. If you guys have ever been in a grooming salon that kind of takes appointments as suggestions instead of actual appointment times, you know what I'm talking about. If you have a really tight appointment book where people show up on time, they pick up on time, how much time the dog should be there, things just run really, really, really smoothly. And that really is the reason why we like a written budget. It helps you know when and where to have expenses, where to cut things, right? If you're overbooking yourself on your appointment book, you might have to get some extra help, right? Or next month cut back, okay? So what am I personally doing to get ready for this potential recession? So I'm making sure that I have my emergency fund and my sinking funds in place. I personally we need to talk about how much money I have, but I have quite a bit of money in cash in savings. And the reason I like cash, even though it's not actually making me extra money, it's not necessarily keeping up with inflation, is because cash is freedom to me. Money is freedom, guys. Just like in 2008, you're going to see a lot of these people that were using things like debt as a tool, or people that were, robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're going to start seeing that falling apart, right? And because of that, I create space in my budget to stack cash and pad my savings. So there are places, and Starbucks is happening, guys. My $600 a month Starbucks budget is going to go down. I'm probably going to cut that in half. Why? Because that extra, $300 is going to go into my savings account. Why? Because again, it's easier to cut back now when I want to, right? Because if I choose to not, if I say, you know what, forget it, I really just want this extra Starbucks today. If I'm like on my third one, I'm like, I really just need this, then I have that money now. I am right now working through cutting back when I don't need to. And it's always healthier and easier to cut back on things when you don't need to versus when you're being forced to, right? It's a really good practice. It's kind of like when you're choosing to eat something healthy versus being forced to eat something healthy, right? If I choose to eat something healthy, but I let myself have something yummy and I'm not supposed to, right? And then it feels less combative than not being able to have that goodie that I want. So I'm also going to be looking at my expenses and considering what fits in my survive, live, and thrive. And I know how much I need to earn in order to keep myself in each of these tiers. Now, in Personal Finance Unleashed, we teach you guys about survive, live, thrive. And very quickly, survive is basically how much do I need to keep the lights on? The bare minimum. If everything gets crazy, how much do I need to keep the lights on? Now, that should be for your business and your personal life, okay? And then live is, okay, let's add in those creature comforts. If you have more than enough money, right, to just be comfortable, what is that? Maybe it's, again, Netflix and these other nice things. My Starbucks is in my live. It is not in my survive, right? But things in my survive are things like I have to pay my car insurance. If you have a car loan, you have to pay your car loan, right? To pay your rent, these things. But in live, it's more of those creature comforts, is like eating out, right? And anything like that. And then thrive is really when you're starting to invest in yourself. So for me personally, I invest monthly into my retirement and into a bunch of other accounts. Not Bitcoin yet, but maybe one day, right? And so because of that, I may or may not choose to cut back on those investments. What I'm first going to do is reevaluate what is going into my accounts and say to myself, okay, where do I want to cut back and where do I want to like kind of add this money? Here's the good thing. If I put all that money in savings and I get through this recession and I didn't need it, then I can either buy myself something really nice or I can do a big investment on the backside. I personally right now am considering that if I keep stacking this cash and then on the back end of the recession, I have all that capital, what I'm probably going to do is buy a investment property cash or investment land. I'm not sure yet, but that's the beauty, right? Is if I have 6 months to a year worth of business expenses and 6 months to a year worth of personal expenses, that's a lot of money. And so if I have that money there and I have, let's say, a year's worth, and I'm like, man, we got through this recession, everything's great, I can take 6 months of that and spend it on a wise investment. Okay. Or, take a month or two of that and reward yourself with something nice, like a vacation, I'm really easy. I'm like, food, give me food, give me an A5 steak, give me something tasty. I'm a pretty simple creature. So, right, you can reward yourself. But right now, it is just creating that stability and that security so you don't have to worry about those things. And then the other thing is I want to recognize where I am in our financial alter egos. Now, if you haven't heard about financial alter egos, again, we talk about that in Personal Finance Unleashed. I'm actually going to leave a video down below if you want to learn more about our financial alter egos, who they are, why they are, and why they're important. Okay, guys. So on the low end, when we're our worst self, I talk about Samantha Spender and Sally Survive. So Samantha Spender very easily is, I want to spend because I want to feel good, right? I'm spending money to feel good. And Sally Survive is that panicked, I'm working really hard, I'm not making enough money, right? So those two mindsets are really scary in a recession. So I need to focus on, even if I'm not these people today, who I want to be in the future. So we call them Tabitha Teach and Tess Thrive. Tess Thrive is that bohemian, travel, excitement. And Tabitha Teach is the person who's going to help grow the grooming industry. And she focuses on helping others, right? So that's what I need to focus on is who do I want to be? Who do I want to be in the future? And because of that, I need to batten down the hatches today in order to become that person in the future. So what can you do to start getting ready for this recession? One of the major things is tighten up your business, guys. Find out who your soulmate clients are and make sure the majority of your clients are your soulmate clients. I see way too many of you guys playing footsie with these people that will not commit to you, that make you feel bad, right? That don't align with your business beliefs or who you are at your core. Okay. Another thing you do, guys, is create a membership. Now, we do have a free workshop if you're interested, all about, is a membership right for me? We go through the 5 different membership models and figuring out if it is something you want to work on. The nice thing about a membership is that you are putting their money where their mouth is. Someone who signs a contract, whether that is month to month or for a year, is somebody who is committed to being your client. I would much rather know now that someone is committing to be my client or not willing to commit. My silly dating analogies, it's kind of like wanting to get married and saying, I don't want to ask him to marry me or ask him to, shit or get off the pot because I'm afraid if I do that, then he won't marry me. It's like, well, wouldn't you rather know if they're willing to commit to you versus like hoping they're going to commit to you in the future? So that is the benefit of creating a membership. And obviously, if you realize the membership is the right thing to do for yourself and your business, then we do have the membership masterclass. And now through the end of 2023, you will get access to the group support. So that's a huge bonus. It's an $1,800 bonus through the end of the year. You know what I'm going to say? I feel like Riverly is synonymous with price increase. It is easier, again, to know now and do a price increase now. Again, when people have that flexible income, right, before the recession happens, it's easier to do the price increase now than later be forced to do the price increase, not just because you're already afraid when you're forced to do a price increase, but also they're probably already paying things that have been increased. It is so much easier to do the price increase now. And again, if you're interested in doing a price increase, we of course have the price increase masterclass, which is a 6-module class where we teach you guys how to calculate that price increase. We calculate how you're going to, like, how many members, how many clients you're going to have and how that's going to work. We talk about what makes you special and making sure you're marketing to your soulmate client, as well as how you're actually going to tell these clients. Okay. That's a lot. And it is a formula. You must do a price increase right. When you don't, oftentimes you are accidentally making yourself a villain to your clients. Okay. Another thing you can do is communicate with your employees. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them if they're afraid. Ask them if how much they're earning in your business right now is something that they can live on. Again, as things continue to get more expensive, it's really important that I know as their boss that they're okay. The last thing I want them to do is walk in one day and say they can't do it anymore and they had to go work somewhere else. Keep that open line of communication. Now, if you're paying them above a livable wage in your area, right? And if you're not sure how to calculate a livable wage in their area, I highly suggest, guys, you take my Pay Master class. In my Pay Master class, we learn how to create sustainable profit while paying our groomers a livable wage. And that's not 50% commission, guys. I'm really sorry. That is just, you cannot have 50% of gross profit given to your groomers and expect that your business is going to be sustainable on that 50. And for those of you guys that are like, well, I have really cheap rent, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But keep that open line of communication. And if they're, if your employees are not, if they are not the best with their money, you can always gift them the Personal Finance on a Leash Masterclass. It's a great gift to give them where you can, even if you want, you can say, listen, you can pay them for the hour they're there to watch the classes, to do the homework. That can be the difference between keeping an employee and having an employee have to leave because they have not planned their finances correctly. Another thing I want you guys to do is evaluate your debt. A lot of people, because debt was so cheap, and it decided to use it as a tool. Now, no one's perfect. I can't say that I've never had debt, but what I will tell you is that because I am debt-free at the moment, going into the recession, I only have money. Whatever money I make is not going to pay anything that I've agreed to spend on, right? It's really important that you look at how much debt you have and start evaluating what those interest rates are and how quickly you could pay them off. Again, if I have this giant stack of emergency fund, right? And I have all of this debt, I have to say to myself, well, if I put this in my savings account at 2.7%, but I'm paying 22% in credit card debt, we need to start evaluating that. If you have a car note, a lot of us say, oh, we're just going to refinance. A lot of us got into these higher things saying, oh, I'll just refinance this. And if you guys remember in 2008, that's what they told a lot of people. They said, go into these high interest rate loans. You'll be able to, use the positive equity and roll it into a higher loan. Home mortgages right now are between 6 and 10%. That's bananas. I have seen students with car notes at 12%. If you can, don't take out more debt. If you do have to take out debt, try your very best to take out as little as possible. Do not buy a brand new car, right? Unless you can buy it in cash. And even then, if I handed you $25,000, would you buy the brand new car, or would you buy a $10,000 car and put the $15,000 in the bank? Be wise, guys. Okay. On the flip side, with grooming vans, I generally suggest buying it new. Why? Because the time that I would be down with a broken van, I will lose more money than my payment. Okay. Most of us, our grooming van payment is going to be between $1,000 and $2,000. And if you are grossing $500 a day, if my van is down for a week, I have spent the entire van payment just being down from lost work. So consider that with your debt. And the other thing too, guys, is make sure you have a solid lease on your rental building. So if you guys have a shop, if you have a grooming salon in a home that you rent, please make sure you have a longer lease. If you know for a fact you are very stable and comfortable for the next 3 to 5 years, get a 3 to 5 year lease. Put in the agreement for how much you're going to pay. With this recession, we're going to see a lot of people selling off assets, or worse, losing assets. The goal of having a lease is that if they sell that building, whatever you've agreed to pay for rent, they can't turn around and charge more, okay? You're going to be locked into that amount. I can't tell you how many of you guys I see out there with these leases that are month to month. What are you going to do if they sell the building and give you 60 days notice? Where are you going to go? Right? And do you have the money for a new build out? Do you have first and last for another place? A lot of you guys are getting such good deals because either you've been there for a while, or before COVID, before all of these increases in the real estate industry, you are paying fair market rent. You know, if you are paying right now $500, $750 for a building, that if you went to go look for a similar building would be $1,200 to $3,000, get that lease, girl. Get a 3, 5, or if you know you're going to, if you're that kind of person, like, nope, I'm going to be here for the next 10 years. I don't suggest 10 years generally, but 3 to 5 should get us through this dip. And again, if you're doing 3 years and the market explodes, that gives you at least, again, that 3 months. I would actually take the extra from that loan, whatever it would be. I shouldn't say loan. I would take the extra from that rent. So let's say you're paying $500 rent, but it really should be, let's say, $1,500 in your local area. I would start making my pricing and my budget based on $1,000 and just stack that cash. And the reason why is because then when I have to move, if I have to move, I have that nice big nest egg of money. Okay. And the same thing if you guys have a grooming van. If you have a grooming van, make sure you have a fixed rate on your grooming van. Most of you guys that have bought professional grooming vans have a fixed rate. Okay. But some of you guys either did some creative financing or you bought through another company. And you might have either a balloon payment or you might have a payment that is a variable rate. We don't know how high these rates are going to get. Like I said, I've seen lots of van notes and their personal car notes from students at 12%. I would not be shocked if things keep going the way they're going to go, if we end up with 15 to 20% on these notes. And for those of you guys that have either paid off your van or you've almost paid off your van, keep putting that van payment aside. If you get into an accident and your van gets totaled, a lot of times they're not going to pay out your van right away. It could take a year, depending upon your insurance company. Having that cash set aside, it's going to be a lot faster for you to purchase a new van if tragedy strikes. So no matter what, guys, again, if you guys survive the 2008 crash with grace, you will land on your feet. You know, and for those of guys that groomed during that time, we will tell you the best customers are the ones that gave up their Starbucks, they gave up their nails, they gave up their hair appointments to make their pet a priority. You know, now is a great time for you to strengthen your business and your personal life. And guys, that's why I'm not worried. So if you guys are interested in learning more about personal finance on a leash, be sure to visit me at savvygroomer.com/enroll. Again, this is a 12-module masterclass where we teach you guys how to get on a personal budget. You learn how to work with your money and, of course, change your relationship with money. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this episode of Grow Wealthy Grooming. Be sure to visit me at savvygroomer.com to see the current opportunities to work with me in growing your pet grooming business. Plus, so many more free resources to learn. So you guys are my free Facebook community, Savvy Pet Professionals. And as always, guys, happy grooming.